Welcome to the Spurs Up Show, presented by the Armchair All-Americans. I'm your host, Chris Phillips. No Tyler Clark today, but we got a very special guest on, someone that is very fond of Gamecocks everywhere, someone that I'm sure is in the memories of Gamecock fans everywhere for sure. Before we get to him, be sure to go online. If you haven't done so yet, I don't know what you're doing, but make sure you go online, look up the Spurs Up Show, rate, subscribe, share, and download. We're everywhere from iTunes, the Stitcher app. Wherever you consume your media or your podcast, we're there. So make sure to share the podcast, of course. You can also find us on Twitter at ArmchairSCar. That's going to be at ArmchairSCAR. And on Instagram at ArmchairSCarolina. And this is a podcast, again, brought to you by the Armchair All-Americans. So make sure to go to ArmchairAllAmericans.com for all of your localized sports coverage content and all of our other sports coverage there as well. So like I mentioned, we have a very special guest on the show today, someone we've been trying to get on the show for a while. Glad it finally worked out. To kind of set the scene for you, he was 20-14, had a 20-14 record as a South Carolina starting quarterback from 2008 to 2011, third all-time in passing yards at university with 7,597 yards through 47 touchdowns over his career, ran for 777 yards and 16 touchdowns, and like I mentioned, is one of the most well-known Gamecocks of all time, not just for what he did on the field, but his charisma and his charismatic attitude off the field as well. So proud to introduce Stephen Garcia. Stephen, again, like I said in the pre-show, appreciate you coming on. It's an absolute pleasure to talk with you.
Absolutely, man. Looking forward to it. Those you rattled those stats off pretty well, man. I miss those days. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, no, I had them written down here. I was like, man, I forgot he was third and passing all time, but definitely in the Spurrier offense, you guys threw it around a lot. So not too surprising, but we'll get into it again. I kind of want to go back to you're in high school, 4-star recruit out of high school, one of the top dual threat quarterbacks in the country, part of one of the top signing classes I think that Steve Spurrier ever signed at South Carolina and in South Carolina history in general. Simply put, just why South Carolina?
Man, I get that question pretty often, and the main thing I was getting recruited by Oklahoma and Ole Miss, Florida, and all these schools with a lot of rich history and tradition. And one of the things with Coach Spurrier was he's like, you can go to those schools, you can be part of their history, be part of their tradition, or you can come to South Carolina and Columbia where we don't really have a strong history, we don't have a strong tradition, and you can be kind of just start your own. And that was kind of like his big selling point. Between that and him allowing me to keep my long hair and shave my beard, which obviously he was not exactly truthful on that, but yeah, I mean that's pretty much the main reason, man. I just wanted to be part of something a little bit different. That's my personality, and that's drive to be a little bit different and kind of create my own path.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it was 2009. You can correct me if I'm wrong, when you had the buzz cut, and I'm not going to lie, you looked kind of weird. It's a little different for sure.
Yeah, definitely felt a lot weirder too, man. I mean, I was just at like I told you, I was at Liberty Tap Room out here in Greenville, and the guy that I'm sitting, having lunch with, he pulls up this video of me with a freaking buzzed head and a shaved face. I'm like, I look like I'm freaking 10 years old. I mean, it's just I look moronic.
Yeah, you got to look at a guy like Trevor Lawrence. I don't know if you've seen him, the guy going to Clemson. He's got like the long locks, looks like Sunshine from Remember the Titans. It's got
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about much of his talent level, but his hair, man. If he's gonna have the long hair, he can't have it like that's kind of girly, in my opinion. It's too straight and like clean. He's got to have some stuff going on with there, man.
Yeah, he'll fit right in at Clemson, though. We won't get too much into that. So you were really big into Greek mythology kind of coming up, and I'm not sure. Are you still kind of into that today? And what's kind of the story behind it?
Yeah, I mean, I was always into ancient Rome and Greece and the Egyptian, and I'm just a big history guy. Even Native Americans and just stuff like that. And I remember in high school I was watching the movie Braveheart. And that's between that and watching the movie Troy with Brad Pitt as Achilles, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna grow my hair out. These guys had some freaking, they had some balls on them. These guys they're not afraid of anything, and that's kind of how I envisioned myself being and what I aspired to be like. So that's kind of what happened with me and all the the Greek philosophy and all that other stuff.
That's awesome. So kind of diving into your Gamecock career, as a freshman, you obviously came in. Split time with Chris Smelly. I was actually at the Arkansas game in 2008, and literally remember you guys coming in and out literally every single offensive play. Talk about just, how tough it was to split time your freshman year, and not just splitting time, but, splitting time, in that type of way. I mean, I'm sure it was really hard to develop any kind of rhythm. And I heard you on a podcast, I think last week, talking about how you even considered transferring because of, how Coach Spurrier was kind of going back and forth between you guys.
Yeah, I was talking. It was an Old Row podcast, and we were talking about the Jalen Hurts and our 2-0 guy, and with the Alabama, how we got pulled in the first after the first half, and like you mentioned, man, Spurrier, we did that my redshirt freshman year in 2008, and it was me and Chris Melly literally going in and out every single play. We ended up winning that game at home against Arkansas. Then we did it again the following week against Florida in the swamp and got beat 56-6. And that's when I told Coach Spurrier, I said, listen, man, either I'm going to be on the team starting like full time or I'm going to have to transfer. I mean, I can't do this in and out stuff every single play. Number one, it's exhausting. Number two, we can't, me or Chris, we couldn't get any sort of rhythm going. It's, you can't build, you're not going to gain a receiver's trust. You're not going to gain, I mean, Smelly couldn't really run as well as I could. So the lineman had to block differently, and it just sucked, man. Just flat out sucked, to be honest with you. So the whole thing of going in and out was an absolute waste of time, just terrible. I mean, it worked for him when he was in Florida. He had like 3 quarterbacks doing that, and I don't know, it just really sucked, and I'm glad that that never happened again since that Florida game.
Right. So what was your relationship like with Chris Smelly? Did you guys kind of feel the same on that? Did he have a different opinion on it, or is that something y'all even talked about?
No, I mean, we have a great relationship. It was very unfortunate that, he had that he wanted to leave and play baseball at Alabama. We were good friends. We still are good friends. I talk to him and his wife Josie all the time, and they're really, really, really good people. I mean, say what you want about him on the field, but he's a damn good dude, and we have a very good relationship. And it's just unfortunate the way it played out. Spurrier's not an easy guy to play for. There's no question about that.
Absolutely. So like you mentioned, Chris Smelly did transfer to Alabama, went to play baseball, and you basically told Coach Spurrier, listen, I'm either your guy or I'm out. After that season when he transferred coming into 2009, did he kind of tell you like, hey, you're the guy, or did he keep it as an open competition and, make you guys compete for the job? Or did he kind of give you that nod like, hey, you're going to be the guy?
Well, I'll never forget. I was down on break down in Boca Grande, Florida, on a little vacation, and I got a call from Coach Mangus, and he's like, "Hey, Steven, it's Coach Mangus. Just want to let you know that Coach Spurrier brought me on. I'm gonna be your co-offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, and he also told me that you have been contemplating transferring. I just want to let you know that if you do that, I will find you and I will wring your neck. I want you to stay here. I want you to be part of Gamecock, the team, and." He's giving you the keys to the car. So, be ready to rock and roll when you get back. Flush out the transfer decisions out of your head, and let's get to work. So after that phone call, I was like, all right, man, if that's the deal, then I'm all in. And my personality, I'm an all in type of guy. It's either all or nothing. And I'm a very loyal guy. And I remember telling Coach Spurrier after I got in trouble those first couple times that first year. He's like, I suggest that if you want to transfer, I will sign you off. You can go play at a different SEC school. I'm not going to hold you hostage, this and that. And I was like, I looked him square in the eye. I said, Coach Spurrier, I committed to you. I committed to this university, this city. I'm staying here for as long as possible. And, I wish it would have been a little bit reciprocated with, old Mr. Hyman, but unfortunately it did not. So that's also my fault. So I don't really have anybody but to blame but myself. So it is what it is.
Right. We're going to get into that in a little bit. Don't worry. But 2009 season was an interesting year. You guys went 7-6, had a huge home game win against Ole Miss that I was actually at. Beat Clemson also to finish off the season after kind of struggling in November against Tennessee and Florida, I believe. Yep. Talking about Clemson, though, you went 2-0 against them. Pretty convincing win both times, part of the 5-game winning streak South Carolina had against those guys. But talk about, was there anything specifically that you think made you successful against Clemson specifically, or anything that you did in particular different from other quarterbacks, and also just how much fun is it to beat your arch rival, and especially at their house?
Oh, it's the best, and it's funny because I'm actually I told you I was at Liberty. I'm actually getting ready to meet up with Tosh Boyd here in a second, wait for him to get here. So It's awesome, man. It's fun, between the players. I mean, obviously there's some trash talking between us, but at the end of the day, man, it's everybody knows the struggle that it takes to get to this kind of program. The D1, the struggle that it requires from us. But it's a good time, and I think what happened is just protecting the ball and letting the defense play well, and making plays when I had to make them was really how you beat them. I mean. Obviously our recruiting classes were some of the best in South Carolina history, and we had a bunch of big-time name guys out there, and, that definitely helps. But, it's like anything else, man. You protect the ball and your defense plays well and gets you a bunch of possessions. I mean, it's hard to beat that. It's the Nick Saban, it's the Alabama way. Don't turn the ball over and, let the defense play well, and you'll have a chance in every single game. So that's what it came down to, man. And I'll tell you what, I love it. I'm gonna let Taj know as soon as he gets here how much I loved it too.
Yeah,
he's got the first 2 rounds, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. During that 5-game streak, you're right. I mean, it was all the turnover battle. South Carolina won that in every single game, basically. And it was funny. 2009, 2010, those games both started kind of interesting. With 2009, Spiller runs the kickoff back for the touchdown. In 2010, I think they had like a 50-yard pass to open the game, and you guys definitely showed mental toughness and able to come back and kind of just turn the tide in those games. So some games that South Carolina fans I know will never forget. You talked about playing for Coach Spurrier earlier, obviously, how hard it can be with how he rotates quarterbacks and how hard he is on those quarterbacks. Talk about specifically, like, how difficult is it to learn his offense, and what's the toughest part about, learning the offense?
Looking back, it's really not that complicated. I mean, I spent 2 years in Montreal with Coach Mark Trestman, who actually recruited me when he was at North Carolina State. And, I mean, if you want to talk about a complicated offense, his offense was, I want to say Connor was in Chicago when Trestman was there. So Connor Shaw would be able to answer that as well. I mean, his offense he's like a mad scientist. That's what we called him in Montreal. I mean, the guy he words out every single offensive play call. I mean, the whole deal. And so I'll give you an instance. So Coach Spurrier, going back to Coach Spurrier, we'd have a trips formation to the field and a one guy into the boundary. We'd call that B trips right, and then we'd call it protection. Protection would be blue slide, and then the pass play, the route concept would be Wahoo, Steamer, Z. And that's all it is. So it's B trips right, blue slide, Wahoo, Steamer, Z. That's all it is. It's really not that complicated. It's all concepts. You go up to Montreal, and, with Trestman's offense, it'd be I can't even explain. It was like reading freaking Chinese trying to decipher these plays. And so to answer your question, long-winded I am, but to answer your question, it really wasn't that complex at all.
I'm glad you guys understood it, because I'm officially confused.
Yeah, I figured. I kind of long-winded answered that one.
No, I like it. Wrapping up 2009, I've got to ask, how miserable was the Papa John's Bowl against UConn? Because I wasn't there, but I talked to some people that were, and obviously the game didn't go as everybody wanted to, and the weather too, everything. I mean, how miserable was that bowl game?
I mean, it was absolutely miserable. I'm in Greenville right now, and it is cold as hell, and it is wet, and that's kind of how Birmingham was. We played against UConn, and UConn, everybody kind of like trashes it, but UConn ended up going to a BCS bowl the following year. I mean, they were a damn good team, and it was just so cold. And when Alshon starts dropping balls, that's when it's pretty cold, and it's not a good time. And it was very frustrating being back there, and yeah, it sucked, man. It sucked. And we had the fans talking trash to us on the sideline. I mean, it was just an overall bad way for the seniors to go out. And I don't know if you saw the interview after the game, but I kind of like broke down a little bit because I was just so pissed off at myself and the way that we played as an offense to have our seniors go out like that. It really stung because I was really close with all those guys, and that was a terrible damn game, man.
For sure. So moving into a more positive note, obviously you use that game in the offseason for motivation to get better, because obviously that followed up with 2010, which was your best year, the team's best year. You threw for over 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, won the SEC, won a couple big games we'll get to in a second. Talk about, though, from your freshman year, being a freshman quarterback in 2008 to being an SEC East champion quarterback in 2010. Where do you think your biggest area of improvement and involvement as a quarterback in the NFL kind of came from?
I think it was just really the camaraderie between the teammates we had. I mean, I think the offensive line improved. over those 2 years. The receiving core obviously improved. We had a guy named Lattimore who came in and helped us out with the run game and took a lot of pressure off the offensive line, and really took a lot of pressure off of me as well. It's kind of weird because everybody talks about the Alabama game in the 2009 season, and that is the one game. That's the only game that I can ever recall Coach Spurrier looking at me in the eye and say, "Hey, Steven, look, man, just go out there and play your game, and just go out and have fun. Nobody expects us to win, so just go out there and have fun and just let fate decide on what ends up happening." And obviously, I had a pretty solid day. But I just wish that he would have done that a lot more often and just kind of let me loose rather than restrain me. And because I'm a very free spirited guy. I mean, I like moving around. I like a little chaos, and that's just how I enjoy playing the game. And he did not like that at all. But
no, absolutely.
But to answer your question, I think just the chemistry of the whole team and the talent level was definitely improved upon in those 2 years.
Yeah, you guys definitely looked loose that day, and that 2010 season. I remember I was actually at the Southern Miss game to open the year. You guys pretty much dominated them, and then we're going to get to the Alabama game in a second because, of course, I got to ask you. Everybody does, but talking about Marcus Lattimore, you played with him obviously 2010. He came on the scene, had a huge game against Georgia. That's when everybody kind of knew this guy. He's going to be special for the first team. Obviously, just I don't know if you saw today, he got put on as player development. He's on Mullen's GM staff. Just talk about what he meant to you guys, not only on the field as well as just a true freshman.
Oh, I mean, he was huge. He's always been one of. You can ask anybody on that entire team. Ask them, who one of your favorite teammates are, and they'll tell you Lattimore. I mean, he was always around. I mean, he always came to our house. We had a pretty good little setup at my house. We had a pool back there, and we used to grill out. I always have the linemen over. Marcus would always show up, man. I'd ask Marcus to come to anything, and he'd always be there. And he was always about the team, and always first guy in the gym, last guy to leave, and always just wanted to do more. And obviously worked out for him. And I think he's going to be a huge, monumental asset for recruiting for South Carolina. And not only recruiting, but he's a developmental guy, so he's going to help those guys off the field as well. And I think that's a huge hire for them. So I don't know if you can hear me or not. It's starting to rain pretty good. Let me go back inside real quick.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, I can hear you pretty well. But yeah, I 100% agree with you with the Lattimore hire. I think it's going to be huge for those guys off the field and recruiting as well, being able to sit down with the players and the families and stuff like that. So we'll get to the Alabama game. Obviously, kind of simply put, I'll actually ask you. I've heard a story. I'm not sure if you know a buddy of mine, a friend of the show, actually, that played baseball at South Carolina, Forrest Kumis. Not sure if you're familiar with him.
Yeah. I know Forrest.
Yeah. He actually told me that week of the Alabama game, you guys went out on Thursday night, and he thought that's kind of what set the tone for the loose play on Saturday. Is there any truth to that story, or?
No. No, I like Forrest, but everybody likes to kind of BS and say that, yeah, man, Garcia, before the Chick-fil-A Bowl went out the night before. I never did that. I mean, I went out. I used to go out like on Wednesday nights. I went to I had to go to Delaney's for the pint night. But after Wednesday night, I mean, it was all game mode, and so. I mean, as far as I remember, shit, man. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I was always pretty good about cutting it down on after Wednesday nights.
Yeah, Forrest is a good storyteller, so I'm not surprised. He can tell a tale every now and then. But yeah, so
a little embellishment.
Yeah. So the actual game itself, though, we'll get to that. Talk about what just clicked that day. Did you kind of wake up kind of knowing? Obviously, Coach Spurrier said, hey, go out there, play loose. Is that one of those games? I mean, I think from a fan's perspective, you could say that game day sort of had a different feeling with it with college game day there. 3:30 kickoff. You could kind of feel something in the air. Did you as players kind of feel like wake up and be like, hey, we're going to win this game today, and just had 100% confidence, or was it just like a loose, hey, let's just go out there and see what happens, or just talk about the game and the day in general?
Well, I'll be honest with you, man. I mean, there was not a Saturday that I didn't wake up saying that, I'm going to throw for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, and we're going to beat the hell out of this team. I mean, that's just my personality. I mean, I never thought that we were going to lose ever, and obviously we did lose. But if you don't have that confidence going into a game, you've already lost. I mean, there's no way around it. So especially at the quarterback position, you gotta be confident no matter what the hell is happening around you. but yeah, I mean, just, Coach Spurrier, just kind of his prep talk. And, that was really the only time in 5 years of being around with him in the program. It was the only time that I can recall that he was like, look, guys, I want you guys to just go out there, play loose, have fun, because it is a game after all. Go out there, have fun, and just see what happens. Give fate a chance was his kind of like war chant throughout the entire week. He goes, give fate a chance. So, I think it resonated with everybody. And, we started off driving down the field and scoring right on that first drive. And after that, we're just like, man, we can play with these kids. And, we might end up beating their ass. And, we ended up doing it. And, the rest is history. I can't believe it that we're the last team from the SEC East to freaking beat Alabama. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, I wrote that article right after the national championship because I saw that tweet like a couple of days before, and I was like, I'm surprised nobody's talking about that. And that article got a ton of love, so it was just awesome to kind of throw that out there and be like, just a reminder, guys. Just want to let you know who the last SEC quarterback was. But yeah, so I kind of want to get into, like I talked about earlier. You had a ton of off the field issues, as we know. I'm not going to go through everything that happened or whatever, but. What I kind of want to ask you, do you feel like most of those things that happened were because of, you being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or do you think you can just attribute to being young and dumb, or talk about kind of the trials and tribulations you went with while you were at Carolina?
Man, there's just a combination of everything. And number one is that I was extremely hard-headed. I didn't really listen very well, to be just completely honest. I thought I could get away with a lot of stuff and like, nobody's going to care and this and that, like nobody notices this and this and that. And, I was pretty naive because at the end of the day, I was just being a normal college kid, at a university. And I just didn't know that, it was the analogy like big fish, small pond. I figured that was kind of stupid because I didn't see myself as a big fish in a small pond. I just figured myself as a damn fish, So I just did a lot of stupid things, and at the end of the day, I did some stuff that I, shouldn't have done. But I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't getting in fights. I wasn't, beating up girls. I wasn't raping girls. I wasn't doing anything like that. I was just having a good old, collegiate time. And I wish I would have been a little bit smarter about it. But at the end of the day, you live and learn, and there's nothing I can do about it now. And that's kind of my message going forward. I'm training quarterbacks now, and that's kind of my message for them. It's just like, just always remember that you're the quarterback, that people are going to be watching you, whether it's good or bad, and they're going to report it, whether it's good or bad. So just keep that in the back of your mind before you make decisions.
Right. Absolutely. So, you already kind of touched on it. Wanted to ask you about the Chick-fil-A Bowl. There's tons of stories out there. I won't obviously ask you what happened because you kind of already addressed it, but are there any, there were obviously a ton of rumors floating around. And I think, honestly, if you guys would have won the game, I don't think it would have been a story at all. I think it would have just complete non-issue. Are there any rumors out there that you can just kind of, dispel kind of that are just absolute, like, made up fabrications of what happened? Is there anything you've seen like that is absolutely 100% made up? Or
yeah, the whole thing about me, partying the night before is completely inaccurate. As I told you, a few minutes ago, that, I was pretty good about shutting everything down on Wednesday nights and, getting after the game plan. And the thing is, like, what people don't understand is that I was always the first guy in the film room. I was always the first guy in the gym, first one to practice. I was always that guy, and I was the last one to leave. After practice, I'm having some of the walk-on receivers stand and, catch stationary routes. So that's something that, Coach Spurrier never talked about, and I didn't really ask anybody to talk about. I didn't care if anybody noticed it, but when people start kind of judging my want to and my drive and all that stuff, that's kind of when I get a little pissed off about it. So, I figured I needed to mention that. But, it's the whole thing of like, yeah, Garcia was drunk, during the game and he went out the night before. It's just, that is completely inaccurate. Some of the other stories may have some truth to them, but that's for a later date.
I'm not gonna lie, they were pretty hilarious because I just remember reading those, and it's like Garcia was out drunk. It's like, no, he was in the hotel, and it's like he had a girl with him, 2 girls. It's like, what? I thought it was hilarious personally, but whatever. Yes. I thought it was a pretty legendary story, something to sit around the campfire and talk about or something like that.
Yeah, I've had a few people actually recently, kind of since the playing days are over, they said, hey man, would you be interested in, writing a book and kind of, tell about, your college experience and this and that. So I'm thinking about it. So if I end up doing that, then I'll explain it in the book. But if not, then I'm gonna start letting dispelling the rumors or clarifying them.
Go to the grave with it. Right, right. So one that I do want to ask you about, and you can go into this as much or as little as you want, but one that I remember when it happened kind of just was one of those things, is like a head scratcher. The SEC meeting in 2011. What happened at that in April?
So it was an SEC sanctioned deal, and it was one of our linemen, Kyle Nunn. It was his birthday, so we ended up kind of celebrating his birthday. We started drinking like Crown and Coke or whatever, and it was a bunch of us. I mean, there was a bunch of the players or whatever. So, we probably had like 2 or 3 freaking mixed drinks. I mean, it wasn't like a whole disaster, sloppy type deal. Anyways, went to this thing, and as soon as we get in, the counselor or whoever was speaking was like, "All right, guys, I want everybody to understand, like, this is a closed door meeting. Whatever we say in here, whatever we do in here, it's freedom of speech. You guys can say, do what you guys want to do. I mean, please be respectful to what I'm, telling you and saying to you guys, but, so don't be acting like monkeys and animals and shit, but, just have some respect." So anyways, so he starts talking about like leadership and stuff like that. And I forgot what I ended up talking about. And this guy was like, every single thing that I was saying, he was just like, no, that's not a valid point. No, that's not valid. I don't believe that's not accurate. That's not accurate. I'm sitting there, I'm like, dude, are you going to let me talk, or I thought this was an open floor type deal once you have the floor. Long story short, he's like, "Hey man, you need to get out of here." So I was like, "All right, I'll leave." And then next thing you know, I get a call from Eric Hyman the next day. He's like, "Hey, I got a complaint that the guy says that you were drunk and that you were causing a scene and this other stuff." I said, "Mr. Hyman, you can ask anybody in that freaking meeting if I was causing a scene or if I was being obnoxious. You can ask any single person." He's like, "I don't need to ask anybody." He said my wife was in there. I was like, "Really? Well, that's very interesting." So, anyways, he ended up having me sign this big, long, extensive contract about taking a alcohol and drug test every single week, a random one. Had to graduate, had to pass all this other stuff. It was just so much stuff, but I ended up doing it, and I don't know. It's a long, freaking exhausting story, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it just kind of sounds like, it sounds like there was kind of a target on your back. I mean, as far as maybe from what happened freshman year or whatever, but I mean, I guess he kind of just assumed that you've been drinking, and it sounds like he just went way overboard with the whole situation. I mean, it sounds like they were almost trying to pick on you, if you will.
I mean, I wouldn't say that they were picking on me, but when the counselor said, like, "Yeah, this is a closed door meeting," he literally asked the coaches that were in their meeting. He's like, "Yeah, coaches, I need you guys to get out. I want this to be just the players only." So I assumed that the floor was ours and that we could kind of talk about it and say what we felt was on our mind, and I did, and I guess what I said the guy didn't like, and so I don't know, man. It was a bad deal overall, and just. I don't know if you can tell in my voice, but it pisses me off just even thinking about it.
No, yeah, I definitely understand for sure. I mean, it's crazy. So we'll get back into football because 2011 obviously was a very eventful year for you. I want to talk about going into the season, though. Going into the opener against East Carolina, Coach Spurrier names Connor Shaw the starter against East Carolina. Did you feel that, did you really feel that Shaw, outperformed you in fall practice? Was Spurrier trying to send you a message? Was it something from the school that we didn't know about? Just talk about that.
I honestly have no idea. Me and Connor are really good buddies. He was actually going to come out and meet me and Taj, but he's obviously working with Furman now. I was texting with him back and forth. He's showing some recruits right now. Coach showing them around the campus. But yeah, I mean, he'll tell you the same thing. I don't think he outperformed me at all, not even a little bit in the camp and leading into the season. I think it was a message. And it was pretty disheartening. I'm a redshirt senior. We got a true sophomore going in there and taking the first snaps, and it really kind of upset me. And but at the end of the day, I went in after the I don't know if it was the first quarter or after the first half, and kind of went from there. Then the whole thing ended up happening towards after the Auburn loss, and it was just a bad deal. Terrible ending to a very interesting career.
Yeah, and I was going to say, too, what I forgot about in 2010 as well, you guys went on the road to Auburn and he, Coach Spurrier took you out and put Connor Shaw in late in that football game. I think you had like a fumble or something, or were trying to get a first down and had a fumble. And I mean, you can say what you want, but I kind of think that was sort of your playing style. Like you said, you're either all in or all out. And
100%.
that was another kind of head scratcher, when Spurrier decided, hey, we're going to throw Connor Shaw in there in this huge game on the road at Auburn against Cam Newton. It just
that's what I threw for 3 freaking touchdowns or whatever it was, and like 350 yards. And in the fourth quarter, I'm trying to drive down the field and get some extra yards, and I fumble. And he's like, "All right, you're out." I'm like, "Dude, are you?" I said, "All right, man. That's and that's just like I said, like that's my personality, either all in or all out. And you gotta. I mean, it was a very challenging thing, and playing for Coach Spurrier and. Looking back, I mean, it was an experience of a lifetime. But I just wish it would have been different. I wish I would have been a little bit less hard-headed, but at the same time, I wish he would have worked with me a little bit more on knowing my personality.
Yeah, and that situation I was going to say actually reminds me of 2013 when Connor Shaw was the starter and he was at Georgia, and he actually fumbled late in that game too. Didn't get pulled, but I remember it was a costly fumble. South Carolina, I forget the final score of that game, but lost on the road at Georgia. Just kind of, I don't know, kind of interesting how those two situations parallel, except he didn't get pulled. I don't know. So anyways, 2011 season, off to a decent start. Obviously, you didn't start the East Carolina game, but you go on the road to Georgia, get a huge win in what was, I think one of the classic games, definitely one of the classic South Carolina Georgia games, if not one of the classic college football games in general. And then obviously, like you said, I was actually at that Auburn game. You guys had I think it was like a 16-13 loss. And then, that following week, you get dismissed on the team, like on a Tuesday or something like that. Talk about the game itself and then the dismissal. And then as far as you've talked about your relationship with Eric Hyman, I don't think it's any secret it wasn't a very positive one. Do you think that he wanted you out and that was he felt like that was his opportunity to get you out of there? Was there some sort of vendetta he had against you? Or, do you think he put you in a position to set up and fail, or was it just all on you? I mean, talk about that a little bit.
It's at the end of the day, I can't point any fingers except for, myself, because, I caused the whole sanctions. I caused the whole dismissal. I mean, I can't really blame anybody. It is what it is. But like going back to the random weekly drug and alcohol testing and having to graduate, having to do all these seminars and just everything. After I graduated, after I got reinstated, I didn't get drug tested or I didn't have to do any. There was no requirements left on that contract that I signed, and so I was like, okay, well, I'm back on campus. I'm freaking 20. I guess I was 23 at the time, and I was like, all right, well, I guess since I'm a legal adult, I can have a freaking beer after a game or whenever the hell I want, and so they didn't do any of that. And then after we lost to Auburn, that same week, my grandfather died, and I was extremely close with him, and there was just a lot of negative stuff going on. And then we ended up losing to Auburn. So, and then he benches me and puts in Connor, and Connor had a hell of a game against Kentucky, and I think that's and I was very proud of him, man. I was happy as hell. I was the happiest guy in freaking Columbia for Connor, because he works his ass off, man. You can say what you want. He definitely busts his ass when he's in that gym and in uniform.
For sure.
But yeah, so after that, he calls me in the office. He's like, "Yeah, you got a test in the morning, so you need to be here." Or no, he called me that morning. He was like, "Yeah, you have a test in 30 minutes. You need to be here." And after the Kentucky game, I was like, shit, all right. I mean, we obviously had a party or whatever, so celebrating the win, and so I went in there to the test and called me back the next like 2 or 3 days later. I was like, "Yeah, I got your results. You failed. You're done. You're off the team. You're dismissed." So I had some very unpleasant words to say in that meeting room after he told me that. So then I called my parents, told them what happened. They came up to Columbia, helped me move, and I was gone within 2 days. I went and said goodbye to my professors and a couple people that I felt like I needed to say goodbye to, and that was the end of it, man. It was very anticlimactic and very very disheartening.
Right, for sure. So, obviously you went undrafted 2012, had a short stint in the CFL in arena football. talk about, do you think you can still play pro football? Is that something you're I know you're obviously working with QB1 athletics with Barry Orth, which we're going to get to in a second, but I mean, do you still aspire to play at the pro level? Is that something you're kind of working and training towards, or?
It's funny, man. I get contract offers to go to Germany, to go back to the CFL, go to the Arena League. I mean, I just got an offer the other day to go up to Boston for their new Arena League team, and I just don't know if it's worth it, man. I want to do it just because I feel like I definitely can, and I'd like to give it like one more legit shot, but at the same time, it's just not worth it for me financially to do that. I freaking love saltwater. I love Tampa. That's why it's hard for me to move,
Right.
back up here or anywhere for that matter. So to answer your question, I don't know. I mean, this team in Boston is talking some pretty interesting numbers. So, I mean, I may just give it one more shot just to say to hell with it and see what ends up happening. But I just don't know. But the main reason I'm training guys is because I want them to have kind of the same opportunities that I had, going from college or go from high school to college and, getting a chance to play in front of a lot of people and get a free education, because that's what it's all about.
Awesome. Absolutely. What's your craziest 5-point story, if you have one?
Oh, man. Craziest 5-point story. There's plenty of them.
Every night in 5 points is a crazy story, I feel like.
Yeah. There's no shortage of them. I do remember there was we were walking down. This was my I think it was my freshman year. My actual freshman year. Just got on campus and I was hanging out with some of the older players, and we're walking through 5 points, and all of a sudden we see this freaking like frat kid start like slapping and kind of like pushing his. I don't know if it was a girlfriend or if it was just a girl, or I don't know who it was, but he started kind of like assaulting her or whatever. So we kind of walked into her, and I gave this guy a freaking monster chest bump, and he kind of turns around and starts pushing me a little bit, and it was like freaking hyenas on a chicken, man. We took his ass down pretty quickly. We're like, man, you can't be. That's one of Coach Spurrier's rules. That's one of my biggest rules is you don't put your hands on a girl, man. It's no matter what the hell happens, no matter what she's doing, you can't put hands on a female. It's not something you do.
Absolutely, no, 100%. And then he took his girlfriend. Yeah, and took his girlfriend and shotgun the beer and went home, right?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to say no.
So talk about another, friend, again, great friend of mine, great friend of the show, Forrest Coombs, talked about, he said, ask Steven about Sundays at Garcia's. Any reality, any truth to that?
Sundays at Garcia?
Sundays at Garcia's at the pool. He said you guys would have a lot of parties on yeah, you're good. So, no, I was just saying it sounded like you guys had some parties on Sundays with the pool and the grill, and he talked about he actually went over there a couple times. Any truth to that? Did you guys kind of throw down on Sundays, or was that a no day for you guys?
No, that was our so we had Sundays off after games. So our big thing, and I learned this, my two older brothers played football at Harvard, so we used to go to their games all the time, and we'd see them on Sunday night or whatever, and they'd just be in struggle mode. And they said, yeah, it's Sunday fun day. That's what the thing was. It's Sunday fun day, So yes, there's definitely truth to that. We would have some pretty large parties at our residential house that our neighbors were not overly fond of.
Absolutely. So yeah, I want to get into, you talked about it a little bit, QB1 athletics. You're obviously working with Barry Orth with that, another friend of the show. I just want you to kind of talk about what you're doing, kind of who the kids you're working with, kind of what your message is, what, ages of quarterbacks you're working with, and sort of, what the goal is of the QB1 athletics program you guys are running.
Well, I mean, I think our main thing right now is, we just want to get these kids an opportunity to do what we did. Perry took a different route. He walked on and ended up getting a scholarship and getting a chance to start. I mean, that's a route that I think many kids are afraid of taking, and so he definitely plays that role. And I had a different role. I mean, I was highly recruited. I could have gone anywhere, and made some mistakes, and this and that. So I mean, there's the way that we work together. I think our relationship and our histories definitely bounce off each other, and I mean, I think it's the best of both worlds, man. I'm telling you, if I was a kid, I tell him all the time. I was like, look, man, if I was a kid in high school or middle school or elementary. I mean, if I want to train with somebody, I'm training with us because we actually played the game at a high level. You worked your ass off to go from a freaking grocery kid at Publix to being a starter in the SEC for, several games, almost, I think, an entire season. I got highly recruited out of high school and, got a chance to play, pretty early and played often. So, I mean, it's the amount of knowledge that we have from both sides of the spectrum are just immense. And I think that these kids, and I think especially the parents, see the value in that.
Absolutely, yeah. Perry's a great dude. Like I said, we were able to talk to him. He's an absolutely awesome dude. So, really great what you guys are doing as well. I know you guys, I guess not you two specifically, because I tweeted at you about DeCarrion Joyner, kind of worked out with you guys a little bit. He's going to be a part of Will Muschamp, sort of what he's building with Gamecock football. Talk about, you got to, see South Carolina practice down in Tampa before the Outback Bowl, got to work with Jake Bentley a little bit, talk with him. Talk about sort of what your impression is of the program right now, how you feel about, obviously South Carolina got a huge Outback Bowl win against Michigan after kind of starting slow. Jake was able to put some good throws together and everything. Talk about, your thoughts on kind of the program moving forward. Obviously, Brian McClendon was named OC. Dan Werner, who I'm sure is a guy you're probably familiar with, named the quarterback's coach. He's been around for a while. Just talk about the trajectory you see of the program in 2018 and kind of what your thoughts are for them going forward.
I think we're going to be legit, man. I really do. Got a chance to talk with Muschamp pretty extensively, on and off the field while he was down in Tampa for the Outback Bowl. And I'm a huge fan. If I wasn't a fan before, I'm a huge fan now. I've always been a fan of him, but he just cemented what I thought about him. And he works his balls off. There's no question about it. He demands that his assistants work their ass off as well. And I think the future's definitely bright. I'm looking forward to it. And like you said, Dan Werner was actually my first offer when he was in Miami. He came down to Jefferson and in Tampa, and he's like, "Yeah, we're going to offer you a full ride." And I was a freshman at the time, and I was like, "Holy hell! Like Miami? Are you kidding me? That's big time stuff." So I mean, it was pretty cool, and we've always had I think he's going to do wonders for Jake and for the offense in general.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I 100% agree with you. So, with that being said, got just a couple of quick hitter questions. Nothing you got to go too deep into. Just some short questions I want to ask you, and then we'll get you out of here. Like I said, you got a probably packed schedule today, but some quick hitter questions. So we'll go through these. Favorite beer?
Like a type or like an actual beer?
Just like actual beer, like your go-to.
Man, anything IPA. I'm a big IPA guy.
IPA, perfect. Best Spurrier impression you've ever heard?
Oh man, I don't know, man. There's been so many of them.
Good one too, right? Can you do a little Spurrier right now?
Oh man, it's tough. It's shit. He just kind of mumbles around. I mean, it's hard to do just on the spot. You gotta.
He's this, that, and the other.
yeah, this, that, and the other. Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah, just kind of cuts you off mid sentence. Yeah, that's him for sure.
All right, favorite NFL quarterback?
That's a no-brainer. That's Tom Brady.
All right, best 5 points bar.
Oh man, you got to go with my go-to, man. Village Idiot. That's my go-to.
All right, best defensive back you ever faced?
Defensive back?
Just best. Like, was there like a one-on-one matchup? Like you guys knew of a defensive back coming in the game? Like that's a guy we got to watch out for.
No, I didn't. I couldn't care less who was out there.
Loudest stadium you ever played in?
Man, I'll tell you, I think Williams-Brice with that Ole Miss game was freaking deafening. I mean, that's the loudest I've ever heard. Yeah, exactly. I think that's the loudest I've ever heard a stadium.
All right, worst road fans.
Ooh, I wasn't. Georgia fans were pretty nasty. Arkansas fans were definitely nasty, but they were funny as hell.
Nice. I wouldn't expect Arkansas, man. Georgia fans are brutal for sure.
Yeah, Arkansas is hilarious.
Favorite? Do you have an individual favorite play in your South Carolina career?
I do. It was a slot formation, so it was a one receiver to the boundary and two receivers to the field with an I formation. It was we call it slot right blue draw 2, deep pattern 7 or deep 7 semi, And I actually threw a touchdown of this on against Vanderbilt to Alshon. He was in the slot and ran a deep, we call it like a deep, it was a 7 semi, it was a deep over. And I threw it, it was probably about a 35 or 40-yard throw, and I threw it like on a freaking line right in front of the, or right like across the safety, and he caught it and went in for a touchdown. And yeah, that was probably my favorite play of the whole.
Awesome. Yeah, I was gonna say I formation. I feel like that's like ancient nowadays with the spread.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
Okay. Favorite movie?
Damn, man.
The tough questions, the ones that matter.
Yeah, man. I mean, favorite movie. There's so many of them. I don't really know. I mean, it depends on the kind of mood, man.
All right,
I think if I'm watching a comedy, I think you got to go Dumb and Dumber if you're watching a comedy.
There you go, Dumb and I like that one. That's a good one. All right, last one. Best non-football related memory at South Carolina.
Ooh, definitely my house at after the Sunday fun days after games, or coming back from class and having some girls in your swimming pool, just drinking some wine and hanging out.
Awesome. That's a good spot to end it on. So we're going to wrap it up. Steven, again, we appreciate you coming on. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. Tell everybody where they can find you specifically, and also, where they can find QB1 Athletics in case they're interested and there's somebody else that might be interested in getting their kid involved.
All right. So Twitter is at Steven Garcia, and then Instagram is at Steven_Garcia, the number 5. That's pretty much it. Then obviously QB1athletics.com is Perry's business up here in South Carolina, specifically in Columbia. But he goes into Charleston, he goes into Greenville. I'm actually in Greenville now. I come up here once a month, do a little training up here. Me and Perry are going to be running some camps in Columbia, Charleston, Greenville, and also Myrtle Beach this summer. And we're also going to have a quarterback challenge in Columbia, probably at the indoor facility, looking like the summer as well. So we got some big things in the works, and we're definitely looking forward to it.
Awesome. Like you said, folks, make sure to go out, check everything out. Check out Steven Garcia on social media and QB1 Athletics, doing big things there. Again, we're the Spurs Up Show. Download, rate, subscribe, and share the show. Get your app, wherever you listen to your podcast, and follow us on all social media fronts as well. So, Steven, again, we appreciate you coming on. For Chris, he's Steven Garcia. This has been the Spurs Up Show. We appreciate you guys listening. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you, man.